Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, just wait a couple of minutes.
Hello.
Hi.
Is it going?
Yeah, we'll wait you for a couple of minutes.
All right. Sounds good.
Hey everyone, we get started.
Yeah, I think we can start, yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
Danny's here. Okay, hey Danny, yeah. Let's get started then. I missed the last time meeting, so I'm not sure if there's any leftover topic we want to touch. And yeah, Danny, feel free to drive it from your side, from you.
Yep. Sounds good. Yeah, I think some of the things we talked about was mainly just focusing the discussion regarding the containers and the sections that are least contentious and aligning there. And I think there was some additional offline discussions, namely regarding specific open config definitions, correct? So other than that, I don't, that's the main 2 points on the agenda.
Yeah, I guess we should go back through the options for the overall architectural specification, right? And kind of finalize on one of those, right? I think we had kind of 3 options on the table, I think, and I think we need to lock one of them down, right? And I thought we had agreed that this week that we were going to try to do that, right? In this week's meeting, right? We're going to try to lock that down. So should probably do that first and then move on to the OTI specification discussion. Just a thought.
Okay. I think that's yeah, that's good agenda. Then Jimmy and Weitan or somebody else wanted to more talk about this first, this architecture stuff, high level description.
Yeah, so my feedback is actually there were 2 options, I think. So the first one is we put all the OTN in a different container. The other one is insert or plug in the OTN features in the original SWSS or the SYNCD. So that option, I think I haven't got enough input or the details to how to implement that. And I also see Jamie already proposed some ideas to how to support that, because it's a new implementation and there probably some risk in the in a technical perspective. So I would like to ask Jimmy, do you want to give more input on that option? Then maybe we can know the details. Then the team can make a decision on that.
Yeah, sure. So I think that's a good so the basically, as Wei Tai mentioned, right? So it's basically these two things, right? But they are not necessarily black and white. So we did some investigation. So our goal is really try to reuse the infrastructure portion of the existing SONiC, while adding the business logic to the SONiC optical business logic. So maybe I can share few two topics. Then we can probably give an idea what that really means, right? Exactly how to do that. Because the first option is very clear. Ali actually has a working system already. So we know exactly how to do that. But the second one, as we mentioned, so we probably need to have some thoughts, at least at the implementation level. Otherwise, it's just an empty kind of concept, right? So to do that, you guys can see my screen. I
Yes.
share. Okay. So there's a two kind of a topic here. They are the same goals. Is basically without changing the existing SONiC as much as possible, and how do we sort of extend it and to include the optical features, right? Okay. So the issue is actually, we talked about this a lot, right? So current OTI implementation, we have a copy of PHY, and we did the modification. So that's the result. Then the drawback of that, of course, is we have diverged the code base of OTI. While the PSI evolves, we will falling behind time by time, unless we do frequently sync, which it is very time consumed, right? So for example, only in the first half of this year, PSI already has 80 commits. So it's like a very dynamic code base, right? Now, by looking at the PSI in detail, actually PSI itself has a mechanism called the experimental extension. So meaning that if you want to add to something without change the core portion of the PSI API, you actually can do that, right? So it is proposed exactly for three reasons. One is support optional or customized PSI. So allow the innovation of PSI not to strictly have to be as an official kind of a portion of the PSI. And you can experimental when it is working, and then you can probably propose to join the PSI officially. And at the same time, experimental extension portion should not impact the existing SONiC systems, right? That's the intention. So how it does that? So basically, you can add a new attribute. For example, you can add a new attribute in an existing object, or you can create a new API type, a new object, right, without a modify existing PSI. So the Dash project is actually using that approach right now. So if you look at the latest PSI extension.h, you can see that they added a bunch of APIs just for Dash, right? So Dash, in my mind, is sort of relate to the original SONiC switching and the routing, but it is also a very different domain dealing with virtual network, right? So they want to connect virtual machine together, and they want to connect the container together. All those, they are networking, but it's not a really original SONiC domain, which is physical switch and the routers, right? So that is this. So they already doing that, and they were able to check in these files, right? So now to do, if we want to do the same thing as a dash, right? So that there will have a two kind of assumption or dependency there. One is the API should be relatively mature, because the logic people, whoever saw that may start using them. So you should not, the API itself should not be in a churn right now, right? Second, of course, SI extension is part of the SI, so you need to have a pull request. I mean, submit, then the SI team approve, then everybody can see it, right? So for those. So for OTI at this moment, I don't think we have these in that kind of a condition yet, right? So of course, eventually we will try to do that, but at this time, we have so much large scope of API. You want to kind of immediately check into the SI repository will be not probably take a while or not efficient. So our proposal from Molex's team is like we kind of still have the OTI code base aside, then use the SI extension mechanism to include these OTI APIs. So when you build the image, this OTI API will be part of the SI, right? But not in the GitHub, from GitHub point of view, right? So this approach has like some good things. One is we clearly separate OTI and the SI code base, right? And we, of course, because the code base is separate, we don't impact any existing SI platforms and even specs, right? And no change needed to be needed for existing SI code base, and we 100% reuse SI infrastructure like serialization, metadata, code generation, all those, right? So we will pick up those. Now, let's go over this diagram quickly. So SI currently is a sub-module of a SI Redis, right? So then we will add another sub-module, which is just a GitHub link, OTI, right? Then we wrote a script, a Python script. So this one can be called pre-compile for the OTN platform, not the other platform, right? Only OTN platform. So for the regular existing switching platform or even Dash, they will go to like using original SI, official SI, then run this parser, generate the metadata. So, so if you guys know, not the original code base actually matters. So the latest stage of building LibSci Redis is all totally using the metadata directory. Okay, so that's this. Now for our OTN platform, we will insert the OTI APIs into the experimental extension directory. We just copy them. Whether rename or not, we can discuss them later. Then we insert all the API type into SI extension.sh and also the object into object into extension.h and the API type into side type extension.h. These two are existing files, and they are already being used for this. Okay, now then we run the parser. Parser doesn't have to be changed. Will be the same sign parser, parser, and generate the sign. Now this sign on the right side will include the OTI definition, right? And it is only exists at a compile time, not in the code base. So that is the main idea here. So any, I don't want to go, yeah. So this point is pretty much what I talked. So that is the sort of the proposal here. So the key point is we only use the OTI header files, right? You see, current OTI has its own infrastructure, but this Python only, so there's no duplicate code base. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Jimmy, I have a question. So if I think the object of this group is that we want to support a wide variety of equipment. For example, for OTN only and OTN plus switch, or in some cases the switch they even add amplifier inside the switch as a plug-in. So I think that's if our group is wanted to support all these applications. So my question here is that if for equipment only has OTN, for example, just amplifier, if we use this one, then we have to integrate all the side code inside the system, right? Is that heavy, or can we just the user have choice if they can integrate this together with side, or they can choose separately just OTI?
Yeah, that's a good question. So now it depends on how do you write this this script, right? You can do many things in this script. So current our prototype is a very simple one. It's just to do the addition. Now, one point is that although all this code, they are switching original API object, everything is in the metadata directory, right? All generated. It's a big. However, now during the initialization, all these APIs does not have to be initialized. So our jobs. So it's getting back to, I think we can ask the question about this. So let's see. Okay. So what it really means is optional and customize the attribute or object, right? In the side. Is actually from the code base point of view, there's no difference. It is treated the same as the other side object or attribute. Only when you do the initialization, because these API objects, they are not, you don't have to initialize. And of course, northbound can not invoke these APIs, right? Indirectly. And then you will be fine. So that is the one. So yeah, so it's a good point. The answer is that it is true, the side API object will be included in the image however during the SWSS or OLSS initialization. Those APIs and the object will not be created. So yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. So that is the idea. So we have like a compile time dynamics, and we will also have the runtime. I can talk about the runtime sort of customization later. So all these switching feature object will not be initialized. Of course, the code base image inside the image, this code out there. Yes.
So so in this case, so we have to add some toggles or some feature toggles in the SWSS or in the syncd, And if it's an OTN device, then we don't initialize this side object. Is that what you mean? Correct?
Yes, actually in SWSS, it is already doing that, right? So switching subtype, it is like MPU, like this fabric switching basic, right? So MPU is like on the port side. Switching fabric card is for the chassis-based switch, right? Now Dash also added like appliances. So yeah, we need to do some if statement probably in there. That's true.
Yeah. So so when I implement this in our product, so so as a new member or the new members join our team, then they start to read the source code. I think the big challenge for them is that they just care about the OTN features, but they have to read a huge amount of source code that comes from the IP, from the switch. I think that's a big challenge. So, but if we do this way, I think the code base, it will be huge, and I think it will be a little bit difficult for the new members. But if you know that how to implement the OTN features, then that will be easy for them. But if we distinguish the OTN and the switch, but it's a pure OTN container or source code, I think it's very, yeah, that's one point, right?
Yes. Yeah, understand. So this is just one sort of proposal to, so in this way, the actually just for the only purpose of this is that whenever psi evolves, our OTI is attached now, right? So we don't need to change anything, and always use the latest psi. So that is the sort of the goal. Yeah. Of course, the other side, it's your concern is totally valid. So we can kind of sort of balance out that. Yeah. So this is just the first time introduced. Okay.
So one more question is that Jimmy, you mentioned a good point. Say when psi involves, then these things automatically included on the
yeah.
My question is that when psi involves, right, basically it's a switch abstract interface. Does that have anything with the OTN part, or is we change some infrastructure and we just all use is which? So my question is that if any change on psi has any impact on OTI?
Yeah. Yes. Of course. Chongjing. You see, in this picture, we use. Oh, sorry. No, yeah, I hate this. Okay. In this case, we are using existing OTI repository. Yeah, actually. So only the header file is used in this script, not the other part. So your point is like so we. For the option one solution, we needed to sync psi changes frequently into OTI, right? Because you can see the last year, they already, in the 6 months, they have 80 commit. So we don't know. These are, most of them hopefully is just for switching. So we don't even care. But I do see some like an infrastructure change, like a serialization, pipeline, all these kind of stuff. So probably you want to get it, right?
Okay.
So everything is a menu here. Now with this approach, you don't even care what they change. You always include the OTI on top of latest psi. So that is the idea. So it's like a psi plus OTI, and they share the same infrastructure. Yeah.
I think from the opposite side, I think because in OTI we already implement some infrastructure for OTN device, such as the some annotation for the power, for the optical power. So we will introduce some new annotations in the header file, and then we will change the infrastructure, the site infrastructure. So I think for sure it will bi-directional change.
Yeah, I'm actually okay since we already have a working system, right? We can still have, I mean, initially, but we want to be aware, like eventually this is not maintainable for a long time, for long term, if you always keep it separate. So the correct way is we can say, let's say we have no annotation, then we can check into site, right? So that's another way, ideally. But you don't want to have like a permanent separate code base. That is the thing. Yeah, we can
by the way, did Molex already have implemented this this diagram? They are working examples.
Yeah. Yes.
So can you share this to the community, or then we can see how
it is implemented? Sure. Yeah.
So because I want to make sure that we don't break the site source code and yeah, then because if you want to choose this, we need to make sure that we didn't break any original site source code. Then we can convince the site team that we can extend this, right?
Sure, yeah, definitely. But logically, nothing is touched on the site at all, right? So even at the compile time, and this is separate repo, and so the only thing is this script. I mean, it's only run for the OTN platform. Yeah. So we will prepare the code base, and we probably can. Let me see. We can also create a branch, V10, if you don't mind, for in the OTI. Then check in those changes for this approach.
Yeah. For example, right?
Yeah. For the example. Yes. No problem.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Sure. So yeah. So when we do this, I mean, so the option 1 is the default. We already know, right? Because this is our start point. So option 2 is like it is almost like what we can do to make the option better, right? We cannot. We only can consider this because option 2 has not been fully implemented. It's not even a working system yet. So it's just a bunch of ideas in there, right?
I think you will introduce how to handle the SYNCD or the OLS if we choose this option.
Yeah.
Does it impact the other code base?
Oh, you mean what the code base? Oh, switch.
The SYNCD, because you choose, if you choose extend the site to OTI, right? Then does it need cooperating change or modification in the SYNCD and the SWSS to support this?
No, because you can see only the platform is OTN. You will run this script, right? Without running this script, everything is existing, right? Nothing changed. So SYNCD will still have the original side to work with. Yeah.
So
so this is like a before compile. If it's an OTN, then you run this script, then you compile. So otherwise, you don't run this script. Everything is as the same as today, exactly.
Jimmy, couple of questions from my end. One is, I think what Weitang is asking is, if you're making this change with respect to SI extension with OTN, you will have to, how are you basically going to handle the SYNC is this question, I think. My question is also that, so are you going to make changes in the SYNC or are you going to have a separate container? That's one part of it. Okay, that's one part of it. Okay, before doing all these things, the first thing we need, first of all, this needs to be, you need to get a buy-in from Broadcom, which is the main guy for the OCP, right? Broadcom and other people who are there in OCP, we have to get a buy-in from them first. If we go out and then implementing this and, and then at the end of the day, it'll be a long shot for us to basically get a buy-in to push the code back into SI. So that's the main thing. I mean, that'd be a tall order for us to convince them if they are probably not going to accept, right? The extension might be for the existing switching infrastructure for the dash. I don't know about the dash. I've not seen. I can probably take a look at it, but I think it's probably for the switching infrastructure. But we are doing completely different networking here, where it is optical. We're trying to push it into SI as well.
Yeah. This is the exact point. Is this Harish? So not to impact we don't need to get approval from anyone to do that. That is the point, right?
No. I'm not trying to say anything.
I don't know what you mean. We need to get approval.
Correct.
Is exactly for
given a heads up
yeah. So it's a separate repo outside, and we just add a sub module link to that. So SI community existing platform. I mean, nobody even know we are doing this.
No, but you need to push the code back, right? To the
no, we don't. So this is an independent repo.
So where is it going to? How are you going to? So this, this is a library, right? SI is a library, right? You know that, right? It is being built, and it's a closed library for every vendor. It is not generically you can build it. It is being given as a closed library. Okay. SI is a closed library.
Yeah, we don't want to spend too much time, but Harish, the key is this.
No, I understand.
We will copy the code of OTA header file into the SI at the run compile time, then compile. So all this red thing is a compile time. You see, you have a SI repo, right? During compile, I can copy our header file into that directory, then compile.
So Jimmy, what you said is that for SI, if they don't care about OTN, basically they will not use any of the OTN thing we don't do here, right? So for us, we use basically we use the SI. We put our OTN as the SI extension, and for SI they don't need to use us. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy, I'm a bit confused. In this case, where does this header file live? They must live in any repo, right? So this repo is just OTN repo we create and maintain. It doesn't have to go back to the SONiC community.
No, this is OTN repo, right? OTI. So this SI is original SI repo. So all we do is add a sub module in the SONiC SI Redis repo, right? Then that's it. So it's a Git sub module of another Git repo. Yeah. So
the sub module need to be pushed back to the SI repo, but then you are saying the OTN header lives in the OTI repo, right?
Yeah. SI repo is already part of the SI Redis repo as a sub module, as of today. Yeah. So the blue is existing. So we only add a new sub module. So this is how current SONiC works. They have a SONiC Psi Redis as a submodule of SONiC build image. And then Psi is a submodule of SONiC Redis. Because the SONiC is so big, right? So there's many submodules as an independent repo. Yeah. So we will be, I mean, if we can push OTI and into the SONiC net, GitHub SONiC net, that would be wonderful. If not, it's okay too. Like this can be existing anywhere in the GitHub. So yeah, I will. I think Wei-Tan has a good point. We will check in, create a branch of OTI repo, right? Then check in our code. Then people will see the details. Yeah.
Will you change the SONiC Psi Redis repo as well? The script, the building script, or the syncd, the other things?
No.
To make this thing work.
Yeah, syncd, there's only flex counter. We need to have 2 files because all the OTN counter, they are different, right? Other than that, syncd has no change. Only the counters. You know this mechanism, right? Syncd is really, they don't care. They have no business logic. I mean, they just, whatever you register, the flex counter, he will try to gather these values from the hardware and then put it into the database. So no syncd change. So we were checking, yeah. Okay, so that's a good point. So now the prototype looks like this. Okay, yeah, sorry, I already have something here. So this will be, after run the script, this will be how this OTI extension.sh looks like, right? So dash the hard code, the check it in, their header file into this file, but we cannot. We don't have a channel yet. Our stuff is not matured enough. So after the run the script, you can see all the OTI definition is part of the Psi extension.sh, right? Our API is getting inserted into the extension API, right? Then you compile everything is part of the Psi. So we will check in the code. So to do that. Now, should we kind of just stop here for this topic? We will do the code. You guys can do the code review after we check in a branch. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that would be better. Yeah.
That's another thing we talk about in the syncd now. Syncd, so the main feature right now, we actually removed the most of the stuff for the switching related, right? And we added PM, right? So this is for OTN specific sort of the features, right? 15 minutes, 24 hours, right? We write a bunch of syncd, Ali team and the SLink team to do that. Now, actually, there's a better way to do that without changing the SONiC. So the goal is really sort of to, SONiC Redis actually has a plug-in script mechanism in there. So syncd, when you update a table, actually you can invoke some, it's like a stored procedure of the database, running the script and then do whatever you want to do, right? So this is how it works. So SWSS or OLS in this case, right? We add attenuation as an example, as a attenuation arch agent, right? Then we will load the Redis scripts as a SHA, like how do I say it's like a hash, right? Then binding this SHA into the plugin field. Flex counter DB has a field called the plugin script. So you bind that, right? Then you push into flex counter DB. Now on the syncd side, so all these are existing code. Okay, nothing new. The syncd will invoked when the flex counter DB changes, right? So it will read like a group event processing, and it will also add this plug-in SHA into the counter DB. Now, attenuated flex counter thread will be created to pull these attributes, which is defined in the OTN, right? Then when this thread is running, it will, first of all, it will read the counter DB, see what attribute it needed to read, then it will read, right? So after read, then it will actually call the plugin script and update the other database, like a state database, history database. So in this case, the history DB does not have to be like updated by the syncd code. It can be updated by the plug-in script, right? The history DB, the original data is from counter DB, right? So you just do whatever you want to and update the historical DB with these PMs, right? So that is sort of we did some prototype too. We will check in those as well. In this one will be in the Redis, right? Redis.
I have a quick question. So in this diagram, while we implement the PM counting, so we implement this in the Lua script.
Yes. Yes. So Lua script, you can do whatever. History DB is just the one thing you can do. Yeah. You can do other stuff. Like we did the update our state, right? To push, because the open config has state and config. So state will be updated by the script, not by syncd code. Like actual gain, actual attenuate these values.
So because in our product we met a problem that because we are in the OTN device and the optical power change frequently because it's optical power, then our syncd will keeping push data into the Redis database, which will make our system too busy. So for example, in this case, because in our implementation, we will check the data. If it's really changed, then we will push the data into the Redis database. For example, how to say this?
Oh, I see. It's not a pulling. It's only when it changes you update.
Yeah, that's right. Otherwise, the Redis database will be very, very busy because the power, the power change frequently, right? So if in this case, in this PM implementation, how we handle this in this diagram? Yeah.
So you almost update the counter DB as an event, not as
we pull in the data via the Live or the OTI API. Then we'll check the data from the hardware, and we'll check the data under the data in the database. If the data is different, then we do some calculations. Then we put in the database. So if we want to add this logic, well, shall we do this in this diagram?
Yeah, understand. But the benefit of this, I mean, you can keep the existing mechanism, right? It's fine. But without create a history DB, you just do it's simplify your code. Then the history DB can use this because history DB, like every 5 seconds will be enough, for example. So the control loop interval is configurable as well, right? You know that. So when in the flex counter, there's a interval. So everything is controlled by awk agent. Yeah.
Hey, Jimmy, one question. So I mean, as you know, right, in traditional OTN PM, we also have things like thresholds and threshold crossing alerts, right? Or threshold crossing events.
Yeah.
How would you handle those kinds of things? Is that handled in your case? Where is that handled?
You can handle in the script.
I mean, aren't we making these scripts
Yeah.
full of business logic now and very complex? Is that really the intention of these scripts within the Redis DB? I wouldn't think so, right? Because that has a penalty on the database processing, right? If you add really complex business logic right in there, right? I don't know that's the intention of these scripts, right?
Yeah, the script is, I think, is for the PM counters will be properly used. Now TCA, those I'm not sure, but you certainly can do that.
Yeah, but I don't know that would be the right approach, right? I mean, just based on past experience, right? Anytime you hook a lot more of this complex business logic into database scripts, right? It tends to really bog down the database, which happens to be the central nerve engine of this whole thing, right? So it tends to bog that down. So it's just I mean, it seems to me like you need I mean, PM is a lot more than just updating a bunch of counters. Again, if you're talking traditional OTN PM, right? It's a lot more than just updating a bunch of counters in a DB, right? There's a lot of other business logic that goes around it, right? So I guess and I'm assuming that in the original Ali implementation, that was all done in the SYNC-D, is that correct?
Right now, we don't support the TCA right now. We just support the basic ones.
Okay. So you just support the binning part, not the TCA part.
Correct.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So that's another thing we would have to consider. Again, I don't know whether that's a requirement of this device, right? Things like threshold crossing alerts and stuff like that, right? I don't know if those are requirements we're going after, but if they are, we need to kind of consider all of those things too, which is one of the ideas we were kind of kicking around last time, right? So should we actually create a PM container, right, that can react to these counters, right, and be able to do all of these things, right, so that we're not burying all this business logic, right, related to performance monitoring, right, within either SYNC-D or SWSS or database scripts or anything, right? Does it really need to stand alone, right? So that, because PM, at least in my experience, PM tends to be some of the more heavyweight stuff that OTN devices do, right, in terms of because that collection is expensive and all the post-processing is expensive too.
Right. I think, I agree. I think maybe we should keep the Lua script as simple as possible, because I know the Lua script, I don't think it's a good idea to put too many business logic in this script. Yeah, but for sure, this is a new implementation. We can take a look at the source code. Yeah,
it is just a very interesting, in my mind, a very powerful mechanism, right? Plug-in script. So for you to use, you can, and I mean we can discuss what kind of function should be used, what should not, right? It's up to you.
I mean, it's a really neat way to affect knock-on changes in the DB, right? So you can have one change affect a bunch of other tables in the DB and things like that, right? So it's good for those kinds of things, I think, but may not be good for embedding full-blown business logic, right? Because I don't know that that's the intention of.
So history DB, like let's say history DB is a PM, right? Equivalent to PM. So it is mostly is a subset attribute of the counter DB, right? Some attribute you don't want to do the statistic, right? So and they are actually one-to-one, almost a subset of counter DB. So it's a very natural whenever you update the counters. So So the difference is like in the switching world, they all care about the counters, right? But in our like optical network is actually all these analog values.
Correct. Yeah, it's all the gauges, right? So
Yeah,
gauges, mostly
gauges.
gauges, right? So that's the
So
problem.
it's a little bit different. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
understand.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a PM in the OTN world is quite different, right, from the switch and
Mhm.
router world, right?
Yeah,
How,
they
how
are
it's
counters.
treated.
They are
So,
mostly counters. So
yeah.
that's why the polling will work, because you don't. It's a counters, so that you never want to get a real time value. There's no point, right? So.
Yeah, but even I think the issue that I think it was Wei Tang brought up, right, about checking value, comparing values and stuff, right? Even if it wasn't a script, that could be done, right?
Mhm.
Once you poll and get the value, you can compare with what's currently in the database, right? And then only have the script enact a change in the DB if the value has changed significantly, right? Because typically with these power values, every read you do is going to have a margin of error, right? So every time you read, it's never going to be the same, right? So you have to apply some sort of margin of error type function, right, to make sure that it's actually a real change, right, and not a reading error, right, a measurement error.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the reality is really like this, right? So we want to use SONiC, but you think SONiC is not really good for OTN. You want to write everything, then there's no point to use SONiC. So that is sort of the thing, right? So my point is really like, since you already want to use SONiC, so you want to explore like all the good stuff from it and to see and leverage as much as possible, and without writing bunch of your own code, right? So that's sort of the thoughts.
Yeah, so I guess Jimmy, I guess that's one question I have, right? And I'm not terribly familiar with the existing SONiC code, so I apologize, right, if my question is dumb, but are the infra pieces from SONiC not reusable in a different runtime instantiation? Right, because it seems to me like if they have tied the infra and the switch business logic, all the spaghetti code, that's really not good, right? But I would assume that if they did a new OS, right, they would have decoupled the infra from the business logic, right? So that you could use the infra to spin up another instantiation, right? Another instance if you wanted to. Is that not true with SONiC?
It depends on what level you look at, right? At the runtime is a container, so it is, I mean, totally separate.
No. Like I'll give you an example. Like for example, right, SONiC is purely built around Redis access, right? So I assume that they have a bunch of APIs that allow you to access the Redis database and get data out of it, subscribe, get callbacks, all that, right? But I assume all of that should be generic infrastructure code that you should be able to lift and spin up your own version of a container, right? And reuse it without having to put your code in an existing container. Right? Is that a true statement in SONiC today, or is it not that clear cut?
No, not that clear. So, for example, SWS as a common is whatever you said. Everything access the Redis CB, it will take care of, right? But syncd itself, it only so the core is actually Psi. Everybody is working with Psi. Right? syncd is serving the Psi, and Arch agent is tied up with the Psi. So that is the problem, right? So you want to be part of the Psi. If you want to be independent of the Psi, you have to write the whole thing for yourself, right?
So Arch agent is not tied up with the Psi, right?
Huh?
I mean, Arch agent is not tied up with the Psi. Actually, the way everything is tied up only with the Redis database, right? It's a PubSub module. You are not basically, Arch agent doesn't call any Psi APIs or anything. It will basically update your Redis database only, and then the syncd on the whenever it is subscribed, the syncd is basically subscribed for this events, and it will process the events and then update the ASIC DB based on that, and then program the hardware. That's how it is. So it is not, Arch agent is not directly tied up to the Psi.
Yeah, my understanding of Psi is a library within.
It is a library.
syncd, right? That this is the Psi. You basically provide an implementation, a loadable library, right? Platform specific library that implements the Psi API, right? For the specific device you're dealing with, right? To me, Psi seems should be completely independent of SWSS. It should be completely independent of Redis, right? Is that not true statement in
No,
SONiC?
no, no. SAI is independent. SAI is vendor specific. Vendor, I mean, is it? It is vendor independent, right? So it is a generic layer.
It's an API. I mean,
It's an
SAI is an
API,
API, right?
It's
And
an API
yeah,
which will be called by any vendor like XYZ, like in the switching environment.
right.
So the
whoever is it. But then the internal implementation inside, right, is through a library and the SDK and everything, which is a libsci library, which is being integrated along with the SONiC binary. And that is a closed one. Your API is generic across all vendors.
Yeah, sure.
Agnostic. It is hardware agnostic.
Correct.
But your implementation inside the libsci is closed for Microsoft. They will have the libsci with the version of the SDK version of Broadcom and everything. That will be libsci, which is a closed version. Nobody else will know what is happening. Dell will have their own. Arista is going to have their own. When they build the SONiC library, they have their own library which is integrated along the lines, right? So that's how it is. So that's the reason I am a little confused about. I mean, I need to think a little more about his implementation, which Jimmy just brought up now.
Yeah, the central issue of the current SONiC is you can see SAI is on the both side of the radius. Okay. So everything.
So this is the OTN HLD. This is the OTN HLD which you are talking about here.
No, this is SONiC. This is SONiC. This is nothing to do with the OTN.
No, it says if you see the documentation, SONiC OTN, which is what we are showing here, right?
Yeah, this diagram is describe how current SONiC works. So there's a SAI, there's nothing, no OTN, nothing. So this is how SONiC works, right? So when we talk about abstraction of infrastructure and application, so mainly, so it's a SYNCD and SWSS. Now you can see that these two containers, they are completely coupled with SAI API. So that is the issue. We cannot. So the natural way of completely reuse SONiC is just you expand the SAI APIs. You don't write new stuff, right? Now, if the SAI, I mean, from documentation, everybody say, okay, SAI is the API from upper level to the hardware, then that would be a much better case. But unfortunately, SWSS is driven by SAI too. Okay.
Yeah. So the good news is on the left side, the SWSS has a SWSS comment. Which that one is good, but on the right side, the SYNCD
has no.
As I proposed in the option one, you can scroll down a little bit.
Yeah. So this is the
right. So the problem is on the right side, there's no infrastructure. So in our current implementation, we copy paste some infrastructure code in the SYNCD because right now there's no SYNCD comment for this.
Yeah. No,
so that's the key point.
Yeah. So this let me see these two topics exactly we can try to not to really solve but to help us, right? So because on the right side it is a SAI SYNCD, right? So SYNCD is serving the SAI sort of API. So if we can do the good job on the right side of your diagram, then that will be good enough. Again, this is the same, this topic, right? So we don't change like a SYNCD too much because SYNCD is has no clear cut of infra and application, right? So we will do our sort of application more leverage the script, right? At least we have this script, can do whatever you want to do. Now, sometimes it may not meet your requirement, then we will do it again. But we want to kind of leverage this as much as possible. For the SAI extension, it's already there. So why don't we use it? And for the sim, for the script, it's already there. Why we don't use them? So we use these two so to make less change of original SONiC code, right?
Yeah.
So that's the basic thoughts.
Yeah, I think we can come back once you submit the source code, then we can have better understanding your proposal. So I think on the right side, there is one living question is the alarm, right? So maybe maybe we can discuss the alarm next time. But if we can solve the PM and the site extension and also the alarm, I think the big question, the big problem will be solved. So the last one is the alarm. Yeah,
alarm.
We will see how we handle the alarms. Yeah.
We have not. So yeah, so these are the, I don't want to go through them. It's actually pretty simple Lua script. How do you bind? You see, of the flex counter, they will have a plug-in field. This is a point, I mean the SHA point to the script, right? So Redis DB can call that whenever you update some counters. So, and this script is free to do anything you want to, and it can access all the tables, right? So that's another benefit. You don't have to go through SWSS common to access Redis. So this is much simpler because it's inside the Redis. Now, of course, Anup mentioned it will be probably have some loading kind of heavy thing, right? Impact the Redis container itself. So we needed to be careful. So yeah. So basically that's all we have. Yeah.
Thanks, Jimmy. So please submit your code. You can create a new branch for free.
Yes, I have.
If you can, Jimmy, if you can submit your code, then that's people take a look. I think that will help. So also, my understanding is that you just showed that. So the only thing we do this, we wanted to use the syncd info, right?
Yeah, correct.
So if we there's other way, if we can synchronize the site info to OTI, then that can also solve the problem.
Yes, Chongjin, you are right.
Okay.
So, you are right. So the whole thing is because the script, you can do whatever you want to, right? So you don't have to change the syncd. Without changing syncd, you can fully reuse syncd infrastructure. So that is the kind of logic.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay.
So that's all for today. So Jim, if you can, upload your code. I think then we can discuss next time. People can take a look.
Yeah. So this we will check in the code. And the second thing is what's the plan for OTI, like API? We kind of running out of time. So every time, so any
I think
somebody in community already asking, right? So where we should go, all these kind of things. So
I think we can because there is already some discussion and there's the Excel file. I think if we are agree with the most of the definition, then we can publish in the groups to get more feedbacks, and then we can make a decision, right? So because RAN is a small group, we discuss these definitions. Sure. Because I see there's some more questions come from the group, the group. Maybe we can publish that Excel file into the group.
I think that makes sense. I think what you have right now, what Wei Tang and Jimmy, you guys have published is, I think that's good enough. I think as an initial cut. I mean, right. Otherwise, we'll now just be arguing about very specific things, right? But I don't think we're at that level. We need to make sure that at a high level that the API has coverage for everything we expect an OTN device to support, right? At a high level, right? In terms of objects, mostly less attributes, or more objects, object level. So I think we should publish that. I guess the one question would be, should we leave the optional attributes in there, or should we trim it down just to the mandatory ones just to make the review easier, right? Because otherwise we have lots of things in there, right? I think that was one of Jimmy's comments, I think, in one of the emails too. Do we do this in phases, right? Do we just start with what we all agree is the mandatory attributes that every vendor has to support, right? Start with that and then later on the optional later. It's up to the group, right? How you want to handle it. But I think Jimmy had that suggestion, if I'm not mistaken, in one of the emails.
Yeah, I would prefer that approach, right? So instead of, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, right now there's a lot in there. I mean, I've gone through it myself, and I would say 96% of it is just open config, right? There's a handful of things that are, you know, maybe were very specific to Ali's implementation, right? But even everything that's in there is not considered mandatory right now, right? And everything that was an open config is not considered mandatory, right? Even from that perspective. So
yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. You can separate this optional and mandatory.
Yeah, just to make the reviews go faster, because otherwise I'm just worried that we're going to get bogged down with this huge API spec, right? Typically, it doesn't happen this way, right? It usually starts small, right? But here, since we had a working implementation, right, our API spec is really big. So it might be worthwhile just to trim it down and then do it in phases, right? Do the mandatory first, and then we layer on the optional after that. Just a suggestion. Everybody else can chime in as well.
I agree with this. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because these optional one we can extend to the basic run, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
urgent,
yeah, exactly. And we might find as we go through, right, that we might, as we start reviewing the optional, we might upvote those and say these need to be mandatory, right? Everybody might agree, okay, these maybe need to be always there, right? That could happen too, right? So, but let's at least agree that everything we've tagged as mandatory is actually mandatory, right?
Yeah. So maybe just weekend, if you don't mind, you just check in the spreadsheet, right? As is. Then we let the group, I mean, everybody can see it, right? Then we of course can still spend more time in a small group to improve that.
Okay, sure.
Okay, good. Are we done today?
Yeah.
I think that's a high-level discussion. This architecture, I think we probably need more time to discuss. It's worth doing that.
Yes, correct.
Okay, good. So we thought you were going to add that spreadsheet and publish in the work group, the whole work group, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thanks. Okay, that's it for today.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Bye. Bye.
Bye-bye.